Welcome back. Good to see you, my friend. So glad you're here. My goodness, has it been a week? I can't believe we're already to Friday. It has been a busy week for me, both here on YouTube and at my day job, but it's been great. It's been productive. It's been great, and I hope that where you are, it is great too. This weekend I'm looking forward to it because you guys know that I live in Western Pennsylvania, but I'm not from Western Pennsylvania, from Northern California. And at one point, about coming up on 10 years ago, it was a dream for my wife and I to pick up our family and go on an adventure and live someplace that we had never lived before and go to a different, stay in the country, but go into a different culture, a different pace, a different way of living. And we did find it here in Western Pennsylvania. Well, Kimberly and I, this weekend, we're going to update our dream board. And I don't know why my camera is showing the top of my monitor. We're updating our dream board. And we're going to be looking at what our next adventure is and what our next dreams are. And I don't know if you guys do that too, but that's what we're going to be doing. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, now why am I babbling on about that? I should be going on this. We are talking about the Madeline Soto case. You guys, this is a case that's really important. It's important for a lot of reasons. For me, it's important, one, because a little girl, an innocent little girl, 13 years old, but starting when she was at least starting when she was about 8 years old. It could have been younger. We don't know. This little girl lived a life that was unthinkable for most of us. She had been abused terribly for 5 years, and it had been documented, apparently, photographically, videographically, and it appears the police say, and I believe them, that it was all done at the hands of her mom's on-again, off-again boyfriend, a man named Stephan Stearns. Now, Mr. Stearns was arrested for 60 counts of SA against Maddie, and then later was charged with her murder. And so he sits in a county jail there in Florida awaiting trial. Now, and that's kind of where we get to today. You know how when I start my videos, I usually say, hey, if you're into true crime, but you want to skip past the fluff, the sensationalism, you found the right place. Okay, today, we're kind of in speculationville. What I wanted to talk about today was, will Stephan Stearns turn on Jennifer Soto? It seems like, so far at least, he is willing to take the fall for everything that happened to Madeline. But having looked at all the documents, and you guys know, you can go to my website, go to Maddie's case page. There's a link down below. There's so many more videos that we've done. I need to add all those. But listening to all the audio recordings, looking at the case file, looking at the crime scene photos, all the many crime scene photos, I do not hesitate to believe that Jennifer Soto was involved somehow at least in the abuse of her daughter, Madeline. This is just my opinion, not stating it as fact, but at least in the abuse of Madeline Soto, and maybe even in the murder or cover-up of the murder of her daughter, Madeline Soto. So I've wondered, will Stephan Stearns flip on her? Will he throw her under the proverbial bus? So what we're going to do today is we are not going to cut past the fluff and sensationalism. We are going to dive into it. We're going to bathe in its warm waters, the warm waters of fluff and sensationalism. And we're going to talk about this whole idea. Okay. Now, because this is going to be a conversation, it is going to be really important to me that you guys be active in the live stream. Put GF anytime you have a comment that you want me to see. I have got several talking points and an outline of how I want to take this conversation. I've got a couple of documents that we're going to look at, and a document that we're going to look at, and an article that was written a ways back that I want to look at. But really, today is about conversation as we try to figure out on this Friday night. Well, and for the rewatch crew, whenever else, but for those of you who are live, what is going to happen in the court proceedings. All right, so let's start off. Let me go to my talking points thing. Let's start off with the perception that Stephan Stern's parents have of Jennifer Soto. So I want to head on over to this document. Let me bring it up for you. This document is the transcript. Well, it's not transcripts. It is the digital communications that Stephan Stearns has had while he's been in jail. This particular one is from June 25th, 2024. It is from his father, Chris Stearns. And, they know that these things are being recorded or being monitored. It's amazing in Florida that they become public records so quickly. But let's just take a look at it. Let's read this whole thing that I've highlighted here. And this is actually from Mom. It's on the account of Chris Stearns, but it is signed Mom. So Deb Stearns. And these are old photos. They look pretty different these days, but that's what I could find online. Okay. All right. Heading back over here from Mom. Talking about commissary, blah, 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 blah. Jail and prison are not meant to be comfortable, all part of the mental punishment, I guess. Stay positive, talk with your attorneys. I keep thinking about how you would never rat out a friend. It really made me mad, and I felt like you valued them over us when you let them get away with stuff. It seems like what she's saying is, you are valuing Jennifer over us. What are you doing? She says, don't be doing that again. We all know Jen was heavily involved in this, and I am disgusted that she is free and you are not when this is not all your fault. You need to think about yourself more and her less. She sure isn't thinking of you and how she can help you right now. That whole family is willing to stay quiet and let you take the fall for everything. By the way, I think my buttons are working here. When she's pointing at the family, she is pointing not only at Jennifer, but she's pointing at her mother, Yolanda, what is it, Zambrano, I think. Juan Soto, Jennifer's dad, pictured here with a beautiful little Maddie. Stephanie Soto, her sister, there are other members of the family that she's talking about there. Okay, that whole family is willing to stay quiet and let you take the fall for everything. When you do that, you are hurting us too. Please get out of your head over this and start talking with your attorneys. This stuff is serious, and you need to approach it as life and death, which it is. I think of the craziness Maddie lived through with Jen's various partners. Not a stable life at all for a child. I do pray for Maddie and for you daily. I'm thrilled that you are working out again and have a physical outlet for the stress. I hope you get your coffee, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So I wanted to bring that up. Let's bring up Miss Maddie again. Let me go back over to what I've prepared here. All right, so what we've got here is we've got the Stearns that are strongly disapproving of Jennifer. They're suggesting that they see her as not only a part of, but like an integral part of the events leading up to Maddie's death. So I guess what I want to talk about here is that potentially a defense strategy? Let's go over to what you guys are saying right now. see what you guys have to say. Let me scroll down to the bottom here, let it refresh. I'm going to go from the bottom up here real quick, okay? Gavin, DS wants others to be charged, in my opinion. If there's no proof, they won't be. Yeah, well, let me take a drink here. One of the main things about being a prosecutor, I guess one of the ethical lines that a prosecutor is always grappling with or walking close up to, I'm mixing metaphors here, but one of the ethical issues that they have is that if they don't think they can prove something to a jury, prove beyond a reasonable doubt, they have an ethical duty not to charge. So far, we haven't seen Jennifer Soto charged with anything. Now, does that mean that prosecutors have not been able to have not found it within themselves, having looked at all the evidence, they have not found that they'll be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Jennifer Soto had something to do with it? Is that what that means? It might mean that. It also might be that they're continuing to investigate. Sandra says, Gavin, sounds like the parents knew as well. That is wow, Sandra. This might be your first comment. Like I'm sorry I don't recognize your name. Sometimes I have the same people tend to comment over and over again. But that is a terrific comment, and you need to comment more often, okay? That was really good. It does sound like the parents knew as well. In fact, we know that from interviews with the Stearns, with Chris and Deb Stearns, that they knew of the sleeping arrangements with Madeline sleeping in the bed with Stephan and Jennifer, which is weird and creepy. And Deb thought so too and confronted her son about it and even had Madeline sleep with her in her bed. Apparently, they called it, Chris and Deb called it sleep divorced in their interview together. They don't sleep in the same room, snoring and all sorts of different issues. My grandparents were like that. I don't ever want to be like that. My parents aren't like that, but my grandparents were. Anyway, so it does sound like the Stearns knew as well. Great comment. My goodness. Love it. Jan Elise says, Gavin, is Jen testifying? I thought I heard that she is. So far, I have not seen any document. That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. I just haven't seen it. I haven't seen any document where Jennifer Soto is on any witness list. If I'm wrong about that, I would love to know. And you can go to gavinfish.com. Let me bring you over to my website real quick. Click up here and shoot me a message. I see all the messages that come in from this form. Okay, so do that. But so far, I do not think that Jennifer Soto is on a witness list anywhere. Gavin, maybe we need to look into Jennifer Soto's family. Maybe they might have connections of some sort, and this is why he will not throw her under the bus. Like there are bigger things that he might be afraid of, maybe. I see what you're saying. Gavin, Cooler by the Lake, says, Gavin, wouldn't Stephan Stearns need tangible proof of Jen's involvement? Otherwise, becomes he said, she said situation. Yeah, and remember, there are a couple things regarding evidence. Number one, Stephan Stearns formatted his phone. He reset his phone twice. Now, they're going to be able to get stuff using Celebrite and stuff like that. They're going to be able to get a lot of it. But one of the things that we don't know about yet, and probably because there are many reasons why we don't know this, but there are a couple reasons. One, maybe there isn't an investigation into Jennifer Soto, or two, it's just not public record yet. I don't know, but I would imagine that the text exchanges between Stephan Stearns and Jennifer Soto would be evidence. I also think that if Stephan Stearns was recording things, which we know he was of Little Miss Maddie, and we also know that he was recording the roommate, maybe there are some other recordings that would implicate Jennifer as well, but we don't know that yet. Great comment, Cooler by the Lake. Gavin, firstly, he'd have to admit to what he's done, and he's far too much of a victim for that at the moment. Yeah, well, I think he's being smart. I mean, okay. Don't think that I just called Stephan Stearns smart. I don't think that he is. I think that he is a predator that is finally honed his craft of predation, if that's a word. Yeah, I think it is. Of not only his victims, but his victims' gatekeepers, as Beth Meeks told us when she was on a while back. We need to have Beth back on. I need to reach out to Beth. But he does seem to have good counsel. His counselor, I didn't prepare a photo of her. She is a public defender. She is good counsel, and he is likely taking her advice. So I don't know that it's that he's a victim. It's that he's now in the game of the court of law, and he has to play it well. Good comment. Lula Ruger says if Stearns had one shred of humanity, he would plead guilty. He has caused enough pain and anguish. Let this beautiful angel rest in peace. Hey, I appreciate this. I appreciate this comment. Let me just share a little bit of my belief on this. And I'm not going to get fully religious on this, just my personal belief. I think Maddie is resting in peace. I think everything that's going on here in this life doesn't matter to her anymore. I think that she is now just has moved on. That's what I hope so anyway. That's what I believe. Now, if Stearns has a shred of humanity, he would plead guilty. I mean, the likelihood of that happening is very high. 98, 99% of cases get disposed of before they reach a jury trial. Having said that, Duty Ron was commenting on one of my videos a little while back, and he was like, I would bet my pension that this goes to trial. So I don't know. At this point, I really feel that the justice system, the fidelity of the justice system is super important, and we need to let it run its course. So I hope that Mr. Stearns has a vigorous and competent defense. I hope that the prosecution is vigorously prosecuting this, and that we will get a verdict that is just. And that verdict, in my mind, is guilty. But I feel that we should just allow the system to move forward. I don't know that I'm necessarily disagreeing with you, Lula Ruger. That's just what I'm. That's just what your comment prompted in me. Hand of Ike says, "Yay, fluff and sensationalism." Yeah, that's. Demon Hugger says we should get Gavin to wear a tie for an episode. Gavin does not wear ties anymore. Gavin is tie free. I reserve the right to change my position, but I have had enough of ties in my life. Now, ascots, cravats, yes, I will do those. Okay, so that is a good place to go back to my talking points. Okay, let me move on to the next one that I prepared for you. Okay, frustration over, let's see. Let me go to, well, I guess what I wanted to just point out was there seems to be tension between the Stearns and Soto families. I don't know if that's kind of a public narrative or if they're just not even talking. And if I if I were them, I probably just wouldn't even be communicating. There is an article that I want to bring up for you guys. And I should have, what date was this? Let me open this up in my browser real quick. So this is back from September. So this isn't new or anything. I just this does a very good job of characterizing some interviews that were released without us having to listen to the audio. Okay. So over 3 hours of police interviews released to the media last week paint a picture of Stephan Stearns, the man police have charged with SAing and murdering Kissimmee 13-year-old Madeline Soto in the final week of February last year. The Kissimmee Police Department, Osceola County Sheriff's Office, and Orange County Sheriff's Office interviewed his father, Chris Stearns, of Northport between February 27th and 29th, after Soto had gone missing, but before her body was discovered along Hickory Tree Road south of St. Cloud on March 1st. They also interviewed Chris and mother Deborah Stearns on September 6th in Northport. The two made it clear they didn't approve of their son's relationship with Jennifer Soto. Madeline's mother saying the byproduct of her mental state due to taking medication for anxiety and other issues made her not a good influence for her son. I think that's a little rich. I mean, who was not a good influence on whom? I don't know, but quote, she's bipolar, bisexual, a drug addict. The family was disapproving. She was sharing drugs with Stephan, Deborah Stearns said. She was spiraling down and taking him down with her. They were feeding off of each other and not in a positive way, said Chris Stearns. She is as culpable as he is regarding the death of Madeline. Stephan's emotions were erratic and unpredictable due to the medications he's been on, the father said, and the parents said he was diagnosed with a TBI, traumatic brain injury, from a car crash during his youth, and he was on an IEP, an individual education plan, while in school. And I know that like there are different kinds of IEPs. One is for those that are struggling and need help. Another might be for those who are advanced and are kind of ahead of the curve. I think that this obviously is talking about Stephan Stearns needing help. Okay. Chris Stearns says he spent a lifetime lying to us. And Stearns, yeah, that whole interview. I think he even said if his lips were moving, he was lying. The parents said Stephan worked at Disney for a year and appeared to have his life on an upward path, but he left the job and formed a pattern of always being short of money. At one point, when Stephan and Jennifer agreed not to be in a relationship, Chris said Stephan took over one of the upstairs bedrooms at Jennifer's Venetian Bay condominium, and going back to November 2022, was being charged $600 a month for a rent, an amount Chris said he ended up paying many months. I don't know why. I mean, I guess I do. I was about to say, I don't know why a parent would do that for their grown child, pay their rent all the time. But, as I've been an adult, I've needed help from my parents from time to time, and they've been always willing and able to do that. And thinking about our own children, we have a daughter and son-in-law who are living in an expensive place and may come to us, and we would happily give that help. But it does seem like in the case of Stephan Stearns, he was a problem child, and he seemed to be enabled by Chris, who apparently wasn't able to say no to him. I don't know that I would behave differently. It just seems like that's the way it is being an armchair quarterback, right? Okay. I didn't realize I was supporting the whole family, he said. After Stephan left Kissimmee and went back to Northport in 2023, the parents said he'd lock himself in his room all day and only come out for dinner, but would be on FaceTime with Jennifer while out of the room. The parents said Stephan had planned to go to Kissimmee for Madeline's birthday party on February 25th, 2024, which, guys, he wasn't invited to that birthday party. So he had a different reason He had a different motive for going up there. It was not the birthday party. He never, this is my opinion, he never was going to that birthday party. He never wanted to go to that birthday party. I think that his particular mental illness was calling him, like what they call it, the dark passenger on Dexter, right? Was calling him, and he needed to go back for his fix. I think that's what it was. I really do. I don't know that any of you would disagree with me on that. He said he'd be gone a week, and Chris and Deborah said they looked forward to the break. Chris said Madeline called Stephan to make sure he was coming Sunday for her birthday party thrown by her grandmother. Indications are from records that he arrived in Kissimmee after the party, and Stephan called Chris when he arrived. Chris said he tried to reach Stephan during the early afternoon on Monday, February 26th, the day Madeline went missing. And when he finally reached Stephan at 3:17 p.m., his voice sounded a little off, Chris said. I thought maybe he didn't have a good night's sleep. Yeah, probably didn't. Probably didn't have a good night's sleep. And then he said he had a flat tire. Now the radar goes up. And Chris's radar was finely tuned. Stephan was vague about where the flat happened. Then at 4:54, Stephan called to say he was en route to Madeline's grandmother's office. He said there's been an occurrence. I thought that was a strange word to use, Chris said. A flat tire and this, 2 events in one day, that's weird. Stephan talked about how he said he dropped Madeline off at school at Hunters Creek Middle School, at a church down the road, and on the opposite side of State Route 417, because Maddie didn't want to be seen dropped off in front of the school because he didn't drive a cool enough car. And then blah, 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 blah. Let's see, a couple things here. Chris said almost the same interview he gave on Tuesday. Let me just read the whole paragraph. He then talked about how he held himself responsible for Madeline's disappearance. The same interview he gave on Tuesday to TV media on the 27th, Chris said, almost like he was rehearsing it to me. Chris said Jennifer texted him on the 28th, the day Stephan was arrested, to ask him to get Stephan a lawyer, and described the sexual images found on his phone and Google Drive. And she was concerned about his legal defense. When asked by the detective if the couple thought Stearns was capable of doing this, Deborah replied, if you asked me Sunday, the day before Madeline went missing, I'd say never in a million years. He loved that child as his stepdaughter. He was not allowed to discipline her. Jennifer did that, but he served as a peacekeeper. Indeed, in another part of the interview, Deborah said when Jennifer and Madeline would come to Northport to visit, he observed them butting heads to the point that Deborah thought Madeline exhibited the same bipolar tendencies as her mother. At one point, she heard Madeline refer to Stephan as Dad. In that same interview, Deborah told investigators about a premonition or dream she had that made her think the death was accidental. Quote, in the dream, they were in Maddie's room unclothed. Jem came in to wake her up, was confronted by them being together in a way that shouldn't have been. A struggle ensued, and she hit her head and broke her neck. And Jen said to Stephan, you caused this, you have to fix this. Deborah said of the dream. Okay, let's bring Maddie back up. So their view of all this is that that Stephan didn't bear, them being Chris and Deb Stearns, that Stephan didn't bear all the responsibility. They talk about Jennifer spiraling down, taking their son with her, and believing that she is as culpable as he is. I'm curious what you guys think of that. So let me head on over to your conversation. Is going to go down to the bottom, refresh. Let's Figueros01, thank you very much for the super chat. I appreciate that. Mooney says Gavin, Stephan Stearns was such a predatory groomer and master manipulator. He knew what he was doing. I agree. Helen, I think it has everything to do with the phone call he got Saturday from Maddie. He knew then for some reason he had to, uh, murder her. Got it. I I always get. You guys can go ahead and put murder in the in the comments. It's fine. Okay. So it would make it premeditated. I see what you're saying there. He got the phone call from Maddie and was like, something's going on. Maybe she thought she was pregnant. I think that maybe she thought that was the case. And he was going to take care of his problem. If that is the case, Helen, then he's a terrible criminal. He's not very good at planning it out. To me, it has all the hallmarks of him not having it planned out. However, having said that, just playing devil's advocate here. I really like this show. It's a movie. It's called Mr. Brooks. It's with Kevin Costner. Um, I can't remember the name of the other actors in it. Oh, it had Demi Moore in it. It had Marge. I can't remember her last name. Anyway, if you guys seen Mr. Brooks, he's a serial killer with a illness. He has that dark passenger played brilliantly by William Hurt, and he's really good at getting away with it, right? So I have sometimes in my life I've had these conversations with myself where I'm like, okay, let's say that I just wanted to get away with murder. How would I go about doing it? I can't think of a way. Not in today's age. That is, and I mean, still half of murders go unsolved. So it's easier than I'm thinking, but man, I don't think Stephan had this planned. He just didn't do it well. Didn't do it well at all. So, yeah, great comment though, Helen. Thank you for that comment. Let's Snow White. Gavin, Stephan Stearns had a reason to go and see Maddie around her birthday. Maddie and the monster had some issue. I think there's a possibility that he wanted to sort her out. Okay, so you're saying the same thing as Helen, that he needed to solve a problem that his relationship with Maddie had caused. Okay, DM says, Gavin, I wholeheartedly agree. Life was so unfair to Maddie. She's not suffering anymore. Yeah. Thank you. That chick, Chanel. Gavin, do you think I hope. No, it doesn't look like from your photo. There is another crime that I've been following for the last several years. It's the murder of my little sister's friend, Sarah Easton. And the suspect, not the official suspect, my suspect's now wife is in federal prison. Her name is Chanel. That is not you. Okay, Gavin, do you think they want Jennifer as a witness because she's culpable for possibly abuse against Maddie? They don't want Jennifer as a witness because of that. That's possible. I mean, most witnesses are not perfect witnesses. And I've sat and covered a lot of trials in my day, sat in the gallery, kind of shaking my head going, why did they bring this witness up here? He's, got all these sorts of different problems. But if a prosecutor can make the jury believe that that person is credible, sometimes by just outing their problems, right? Jennifer was participating in this. She did see things though. I don't know. Maybe. Great comment. So many of you. Beach Fairy, Gavin, I get genuinely angry and sad that people like Stephan have that unconditional love from their parents. I never had that. I can't wrap my head around it. Yeah, the thing is, Beach Fairy, I don't know that it's unconditional love. Because I unconditionally love my children. I do. We have 5 of them and we love them. However, if a daughter of mine or a son of mine came to me and said, I made this terrible mistake and so is now dead, I would definitely get them a lawyer for sure, but we would be turning them in. We'd be turning our child in. And I don't know that Kristen's Deb Stearns would have. This is unconditional enabling is what it feels like, not necessarily unconditional love. I have unconditional love for my parents. But the moment I am in the wrong, I do not get their defense. I get their love, but I do not get their defense. And one of the beautiful things about being a younger child, like I'm number 4 of 5, I get to see that played out in my older siblings first. So most of the time I haven't had to actually experience that, but I know it's true. I definitely know it's true. Couple more here. New England Coast. I feel for Mr. and Mrs. Stearns. This is every parent's nightmare. We do our best to raise our kids, but in the end, it can still turn out badly. Yeah, I did have to repent a little bit when it came to the Stearns. And it was after I saw their interview on The Interview Room. Prior to that, I was of the opinion that, hey, these guys are co-doctors Frankenstein and Stephan is their monster. And now they have to deal with what they have created. I kind of feel now, though, well, I do feel now, it's not kind of, I definitely feel now that it's not, that is not the case. They probably did their best. They probably still are guilty of over enabling him, but I don't think that they purposefully made a monster, I guess, what I'm saying there. Let's bring up little Miss Maddie. Let's see. Cooler by the Lake. Any indication that Stephan was involved in SA behavior before he met Jen? Maybe they brought this out in each other. So, hearkening back to my conversation with Beth Meeks, do I have a picture of Beth anywhere? I don't think I do. I wish I did, but I don't. I feel, while we don't have any evidence that we know of that he was involved in this type of abuse prior to Madeline, his ability to gain access to Madeline and then abuse her for at least 5 years indicates to me that he was a practiced hunter. You don't, on your first hunt, you don't get that lucky. Not for 5 years. And you guys know what I mean. I'm not praising him. I'm just saying it's, yeah, he wouldn't be that skilled of a predator. So my belief is that Madeline is one of multiple victims. And I think that's a reasonable belief. Okay, last one before we move on. Oh my goodness. I do not, I'm not going to say your name, but thank you very much for your comment. Gavin, his own parents said if his lips were moving, he was lying. So why all of a sudden do they believe everything he's probably feeding to them about JS and her family? I don't know that they are necessarily believing everything that he says. Like when you go through their conversations, I don't know that, I don't think it would be a fair commentary to say that they believe everything that he says. I think the characterization that I would put is that they believe that Jennifer is also culpable. Good comment. Thank you. All right. Let's go back over to my talking points. I've got a couple other things. Oh, yeah. Let's talk about urging Stephan to prioritize self-preservation. Again, we're talking about this in the frame of, will Stephan Stearns flip on, bring up Stephan Stearns, will he flip on Jennifer Soto? And will he try to preserve himself? And there is that quote in the conversation with his mom, please get out of your head. Let me see if I can find this. Yeah, here it is. please get out of your head over this and start talking with your attorneys. This stuff is serious. You need to approach it as life and death, which it is. I think of the craziness Madeline lived through with Jen's various partners, not a stable life for a child, right? So uh, they're saying you need to prioritize your self-preservation. You need to get out of your own head and try to preserve your life. And I do remember in the recorded conversations, Chris Stearns telling him, listen, best case scenario is 40 years. We're going to be gone by the time you get out. That is the way it is going to be. Best case scenario. So at least I believe that in Chris Stearns' mind, he believes that his son is definitely getting convicted here. But they're saying, but at least try to save your own life. This is life and death. Try to save your own life. Listen to your lawyers, talk to your lawyers, and talk about the part that Jennifer Soto had in all this. That's what I think they're saying. Now, we got to play devil's advocate, right? Is it possible? Is it possible that Jennifer Soto had nothing to do with anything? And that for 5 years, Stephan Stearns was so good at what he did that he did it under the nose of Jennifer Soto? I think if we're going to be fair, the answer to that question is yes, it is possible. I think that the probability is very low. I can't imagine. I can't imagine it, especially knowing that all three of them were in the same bed. And the whole, what was that text that she sent about? Now I can't even remember the name of that director, right? But you guys know what I'm talking about, where, there was an incriminating text. She sent her daughter up to sleep in the bed of her ex-boyfriend. These are indications to me. Wanting to get her boyfriend, her ex-boyfriend, who she knew had SA'd her daughter because police had shown her photos, and she still wanted to make sure that he got a lawyer. These are indications to me that she was in on it. That's what it feels like to me. Okay. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. So go ahead and get those in the comments. Oh yeah. Okay. Again, Stephan's mom, her comment on his past behavior, right? So I keep thinking about how you would never rat out a friend. Don't be doing that again, is what she says to her son. I keep thinking about how you would never rat out a friend. Don't be doing that again. So, would Stephan's past reluctance to implicate others, could that have changed now that he's facing the death penalty on both cases? Guys, that is something that we need to remember, right? Florida passed a law that the kind of abuse that he did on Madeline Soto is a capital offense in the state of Florida. And I think that's probably going to be struck down, but right now it is. And obviously the murder, that's a capital offense too. So, that whole, her comments on saying, don't act the way you have in the past, tell everybody about this is me putting words in her mouth or characterizing what she said. Tell them what Jennifer's part in all of this, right? Okay, now there are a couple of things that I put down as a non-lawyer, right? So what are some of the legal implications of Stephan Stearns' defense strategy? Let's get his face off here. Let's get Maddie's back up. Okay, so Stephan's parents' comments suggest they believe, obviously, that Jennifer played a role in Madeline's death. So could Stephan's legal team argue that Jennifer, not Stephan, that Jennifer was the primary actor, making Stephan less culpable? Is that an argument that they could make? Could they make the argument that Stephan was manipulated or coerced himself by Jennifer into participating in or covering up the crime. So not necessarily the SA that was happening, but could it possibly be like the dream that Deb had uh, that it was an accident? I don't believe this for a minute, but there was an accident, and then it was Jennifer who was uh, coercing and manipulating Stephan into covering up what happened. Is that something they could be looking at? Let's see. Could Stephan's parents' frustration with Jennifer by saying things like, she's free, you're not, this is not all your fault, could that be used to build a narrative that Stephan was a victim of Jennifer's influence, not the other way around, especially if there's evidence that she had some sort of power or control over him? For example, the only thing that I could think of was that Jennifer seemed to have an income and Stephan seemed not to, other than what I think he was probably profiting off of the material that he had. But Jennifer had a home. Jennifer had a reliable car. Jennifer lived near family. Jennifer had a daughter that she knew that Stephan wanted. And so could she possibly have been using that as leverage to manipulate or coerce him? And by the way, like, you guys, if you disagree with me, it's perfectly fine, because I don't agree with me. I'm just trying to explore a couple things here. And I would love your comments on that. Okay. A couple of other possibilities, right? There might be, he has an option. Let's bring Maddie back up so we don't have to keep looking at him. So here's a defense strategy. He could just say, I'm going to cooperate fully with the prosecution. I'm going to offer up evidence or testimony implicating Jennifer in exchange for a reduced sentence. So this could be providing insight into Jen's behavior or offering unknown details. Maybe he has things saved somewhere else leading up to or after Madeline's death. Maybe his defense strategy is just deflection. So without cooperating with prosecutors, they could just deflect, point fingers at Jennifer. The whole, I'm not guilty because I couldn't possibly have murdered the victim, because that is the person who murdered the victim. That is a classic defense, right? So yeah, introducing some sort of reasonable doubt about his responsibility, or at least his sole responsibility, highlighting Jennifer's mental health struggles that have been detailed by other people, including her ex-husband, Stephen Young, arguing that Stephan was under some sort of emotional or psychological distress or duress in the relationship, impacting his decisions. I think that there are challenges to that. like as I'm saying these aloud, I don't believe them. I mean, Jennifer's defense simply could be that Stephan would be shifting blame, and look at all the hard evidence. There is a need for evidence if you're going to successfully implicate Jennifer. We've seen none of that so far. And I guess there's a risk of a backlash if they tried this kind of defense in front of a jury. The whole throwing Jennifer under the bus argument could alienate some jury members if he comes across as fake or phony or opportunistic or whatever. Trying to think, I brought up some leverage the prosecution might have. They might use this dynamic between Stephan and Jennifer to pressure Stephan into a plea deal, offering some sort of leniency if he provides credible evidence about Jennifer or against Jennifer. All like on the other side of that, they could use his parents' statements against him, framing them as a biased attempt to shield Stephan while unfairly targeting Jennifer. There's a whole bunch here. The psychological element for the jury. Let's see, by introducing the narrative of Jennifer's alleged influence over Stephan, the defense might appeal to jurors' sympathies, portraying him as someone caught in a toxic or manipulative relationship, like flipping the script, right? Who is manipulating who here? Um, all right, so let me just pause there because I've got maybe one. Well, no, let's do this talking point. This is my last one that I want to go to your comments. Remember, we are in fluff and sensationalism territory here, full speculationville, right? So leave your comments below. All right. So Stephan's parents noted that they felt that Jennifer's mental illness issues negatively influenced Stephan. Um, so, there's this public perception of Jennifer as being uh, somebody who might either be hooked on drugs, whether they're prescription or they're illicit, someone who is, giving away her responsibility to parent her child while she takes these powerful drugs and goes to sleep. Um, so there's that public perception. I wonder how Jennifer's mental health, the perceived dynamic in the relationship between her and Stephan, could sway not only public perception now, but jurors' perception later. I don't know, right? It's just such a messy case. So I guess my closing thought was this, or my closing question or questions are: if Stephan Stearns believes that implicating Jennifer Soto could lessen his criminal responsibility, does that make him more likely to cooperate with prosecutors? Or if he does so, would it backfire on him, thinking that maybe there's no, as you guys pointed out, no actual evidence against Jennifer? What do you think? Let's go to your comments. All right, let's go down to the bottom. We're going to work our way up. Let's refresh here. Okay. Let's see. Tish says there's a difference between helping and enabling. The Stearns are the epitome of enabling to the point of total irresponsibility as parents. Ashley, hashtag I took my meds. That's, yeah. Gavin, I like the guest you had who talked about Jennifer Soto. She was great. We don't know what she knew or when she knew it, and would be very hard to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Yeah, that was Beth Meeks. She was amazing. Unless there's some kind of evidence, right? I wonder. Sandra says, Gavin, what about the hard drive Stephan Stearns took from the computer at his parents' house? Did Stephan Stearns hide that? And it shows Jennifer Soto's involvement. I think did they find that hard drive? I can't remember. Gorgeous George. Let me look at that. Let me look at your picture. I'm not a cat. It's been a long time since I thought about that. That was a funny. I'm not a cat. Anyway, Gavin says Gorgeous George, looking all gorgeous in that little cat picture. Detective Kevin said people can't hide an affair for long, but Stephan Stearns and Maddie hid this for 3+ years. No way. It was actually like 5+ years. Yeah, good point. Gorgeous. Let's see. Jana says, Gavin, the fact that he always had money for his toys and vape stuff, Jen had to have known the money was coming from somewhere. Yeah. Hello from Spain, says Michelle. Michelle, let me ask you this. I know that there's some weirdness going on in Spain right now, especially having to do with tourism and stuff like that. But as I'm going to update my dream board this weekend with my wife, one of the things that we're thinking about is taking our kids on what our friends have called a radical sabbatical, like a year abroad. This is something that we're thinking about. This isn't something that we're definitely doing. And I've been thinking about different countries to do that in. We'd like to do Europe if we're going to do this. I was thinking a place where they speak romantic languages because I can pick those up a little bit easier because I speak two of them. So I was thinking Portugal or Romania, but I'm wondering if Spain is friendly enough to outsiders to make that a contender. That's really just a sidebar, but I'd love to know your thoughts on that. So, what you should do, Michelle, is go over to my website and contact me there. Okay, I would love to hear your thoughts on that. All right, bringing Maddie back up. Let's see. He doesn't qualify for the death penalty for the CSA she was told when the law went into effect. I don't think so. I mean, you might be right. You could be right, but I think that they charged him. I think they charged him that way. But I might be wrong. I'm trying to think of a way that I can check on that while I'm live streaming. I think it'll probably be pretty hard. So, but either way, he is facing the death penalty in the murder part of it. Tanya says, Gavin, the fact that in that interview his parents said she called to tell them he needed a lawyer and described the picture she saw. She saw a photo of her child being abused, and this is what she does. Yeah, it's weird. Donna says that she thinks they both had a hand in it equally. Jessica says, Gavin, it would be really interesting to see a collab between you and Hidden True Crime to discuss the case so far with your and Lauren's journalism backgrounds and John's psych background. That I should reach out. I've never reached out to Hidden True Crime. I love doing collaborations, and within the true crime community on YouTube, at least, we don't do enough of them. So I would love to do that. And so maybe I will reach out. I will tell you though that, I've got somebody who is hooking me up with a criminal psychologist. I'm trying to nail that down. So I'm working on it, but I will also work on it. I love that idea, Jessica. Nuna needs a nap. Manda says, Gavin, I watched the Behavior Panel channel review Jen Soto's interviews, and I'm now convinced she knew all about it. Her responses were more scared of getting caught and worried about her daughter. That's how a lot of us came away from watching those. Like, what? Gorgeous says, not with so many photos and videos taken right next to her bedroom. She wanted Maddie to do the things with Stephan Stearns that she didn't want to do. I mean, I fear that you're right on that. By the way, my button gremlins have gone away, which is pretty great. Nifty 50-50. Good to see you again. If his parents were totally convinced that Jennifer Soto was involved, why did they not speak up to anyone about it in any interviews? Their last interview, they said that he acted alone. Yeah, I mean, that is fair to say that after Chris Stearns talked to the police, he said he was convinced at that point that Stephan acted alone, but I don't know. Hop along, Chas. Hop along, Chaz. There we go. Gavin, do you know why the mom was given immunity? I don't know specifically. However, if you go to my website, head over to the blog, and scroll on down, and I've written an article about derivative use immunity that might interest you. See if there's anything else. I'm going to go back down to the bottom real quick. Amanda GC, Gavin. So Stephan Stearns is still staying tight-lipped or denying? Can't recall what his stance is on this. Is he communicating with attorneys? I came in the chat late. Yeah, he is represented now. He is definitely talking with attorneys. Widespread says, don't do a show with HTC. Well, I'll do my best. I love collaborations. I'm going to do my very best. Yeah, he was already charged with capital. Southwest 4x4 Explorers love S-dubs. Gavin, I love Spain, just not as friendly in Barcelona. Seems to be where it is. Let's see. I protest about calling it an affair. It is SA. Did I call it an affair? If I did, I apologize, because you're right, it wasn't. Mooney says, Gavin, Stephan Stearns will try anything, but I think if he does, he may be in for a rude awakening. Either way, he's toast. That is a great comment to leave on. Yeah, I think he's toast, Mooney. I think you are absolutely right on the money there. My question is, will there get a little bit of a char on Jennifer as well? And I don't know. I hope so, because I just can't believe that she didn't know. All right, guys. It's the end of the video. It's time for a shameless plug. I've already plugged my website a million times, but I want you to go over to the website, click on Crime Cod. That is going to open up this website right here. Okay. This is my website full of true crime content that you can read on the daily. You can sign up for the newsletter here. And that's another task that I'm doing this weekend, is perfecting the newsletter so it will go out on the regular. We've already got about 1,500 people that have signed up. So please sign up for my true crime newsletter titled Crime Cod if you are into that thing. It's free. I don't spam. I don't sell your information. It's on a secure server and it's easy to unsubscribe. The other thing is, if you click on this little fishy, that will take you to the fish tank. If you're on Facebook and you love talking about true crime, come on over to the fish tank. Last but not least, my chief mod, Autumn, is awesome. She's awesome, Autumn. She takes care of all the lead responsibilities of moderating. By the way, if you want to be a moderator, Nightbot should tell you how to do that. But if you go to the support me page and scroll down to the bottom, you can buy Autumn a coffee, and I would appreciate it if you would support her that way. With that, guys, we will not be back tomorrow. We will not be back on Sunday, but we will be back on Monday at our regular time, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And over the weekend, I will be planning out the week of videos. Hopefully, we'll have a couple of guests next week. Can't guarantee it, but we're working on it. And so if you haven't subscribed already, please do if you like this kind of content. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Until then, I bid you adieu, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.